Now, in this video, I want to tell you a funny story about an individual who was working at BNP Paribas, which is like a French bank, like a French smaller investment bank. And it was about Stacey Macken, who is an employee in one of their offices. And she managed to sue the company successfully after a series of unfortunate incidents that occurred for her. What she was doing is she's won this gender bias case after a series of jokes was made about her in the office, and she made millions of dollars through suing the company. And it's this series of funny instances. One of them, people were implying that she's a witch in the office, and based on the eyes, she might be. If you look, she's got kind of a crazy stare. And after one of the Halloween or team events, someone left a witch's hat on her desk without being clear who did leave the witch's hat on her desk. It was kind of implied that it was a joke that she was a witch in the office. And she also did some research and found out she was paid less than other employees, and she won quite successfully and made millions of dollars through this. And this is, as the caption says on this video, being a victim does pay well. And as things get worse and worse in this economy, you're going to see more people try to leverage being a victim to make a lot of money. And I think she's got some legitimate points of criticism here, right? Typically, me, if you've watched my channel, I might not be the most supportive of career women, but I think there are valid cases where they are mistreated in certain instances. So let's talk through this in a bit of detail, right? So it says Stacey has sued the London office of BNP Paribas, that French bank, for £4 million on the basis of unequal pay, claiming she was discriminated against due to her gender. And she also said that she was dealing with a lot of harassment while she was working there. And she said that she was earning £120,000 compared to her male co-worker who was earning £160,000, right? So she was saying she was getting paid less. Now, just a quick note on that. I think, when you go into a job, the amount you get paid is based on what you can negotiate. And typically the recruiters would ask for what you're getting paid at your current role or your previous role before you move on to a new role. So in a sense, right, if you're held down at a lower wage or lower salary at a particular company, it reduces your negotiation ability at the newer company you're working at, right? So maybe she was going from 90,000 at one company to 120,000 at this company, compared to a male colleague who might have been earning more at another company who could negotiate more coming into this role. So a lot of what you're getting paid isn't dependent on what gender you are. It's based on what you can negotiate. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate, which is a kind of a popular phrase, right? So I'm not sure to what extent she's getting paid less than her male colleague for the same job, just on the basis of gender discrimination. It could be things due to negotiation. There's so many other factors here. Other point here is about her co-worker, right, getting paid $237,000 in bonuses over a 5-year period, 7 times more than what she got, which was $33,000. Now, that definitely does seem suspicious to me. If they're at the same level, typically you'd be able to generate the same level of business. Unless the level of business she was able to generate was significantly lower than her co-workers, then maybe you could justify that she was getting paid $33,000 in a bonus compared to a co-worker getting $237,000 in a bonus. So it's interesting considering that. Now, as we go on in the story, she says she was rudely dismissed by her bosses, and they would brush off her questions by saying, "Not now, Stacey," and then that phrase become a sarcastic phrase. People will always be dismissive of her, and I would say it's a tricky balance in the office, right? Because if someone's saying "not now, Stacey," or "not now," whatever your name would be, and then it becomes a bit of a phrase, it could be reflective of one thing: either you're asking too many questions, or there is an element of subtle bullying of an employee. So I can kind of see this from both perspectives, right? And I've dealt with a lot worse insults than that, so it kind of does kind of stand out to what extent she was not taking a joke too well, or they were just trying to treat her unfairly in the office. And then she's talking about other instances, right, where people were being kind of inappropriate with her, with crude stories about their personal life, things I'm not going to repeat given we're on this platform, but kind of weird, definitely inappropriate comments that they make around her, right? And these are the type of things where you can say, yeah, valid, right, that she's making these good points that she was dealing with inappropriate workplace conduct, right? And one thing I realized is a lot of this type of conduct or these inappropriate comments from male colleagues, they're typically frustrated men at work, and like these weird, like soy boy, liberal, feminist men who may have dysfunctional personal lives, and because they're frustrated in their personal life, maybe unsuccessful in relationships, that they go to work and they need to engage in these type of weird flirting dynamics with their female co-workers, is always this weird type of guy. There's a specific type of male feminist who'll be championing women's rights on one end and the other end be like super creepy with women. It's always the same type of guy who's in the friend zone at work. So she's probably dealing with a lot of those type of characters, which I've seen, which is a fair point. They are kind of weird and make inappropriate comments. Then we got instances where after Halloween, someone left a witch's hat on her desk, which sounds kind of funny. But I think when you look at this combined, the witch's hat left on her desk, inappropriate comments about people's personal lives, being dismissive of her asking questions, things like that. Over the time collectively, we can argue that maybe she's being discriminated against, right? And then we've got her continuing her story here about, dealing with all these type of difficult dynamics. And just before we move on, when it comes to the witch's hat on the desk, the issue with the workplace is that what's a joke to one person might not be a joke to another. And I realize the way men socialize is in terms of banter, which would be like making jokes about each other. But the thing is, everything should be fair game or nothing's fair game. And what I mean by that is like, if we're going to say, employees can make jokes about certain things or about certain employees, it should work both ways. But unfortunately in the office, it always works one way. It's like, there's one employee everyone's allowed to pick on and make jokes about them. But if they make a joke about you, then you're going to pretend to be so embarrassed or unfairly treated and you demand an apology. I've dealt with things like that. From my end, I've dealt with that from like certain toxic male managers or female co-workers where they can say whatever, and if you make a similar comment about them, then they throw a complete hissy fit and demand an apology, but they're allowed to kind of bully you in very passive aggressive ways, right? So I agree with her. It's a difficult dynamic sometimes when you're dealing with these crazy people in the office. Then she said she received no bonus in 2017, where her bosses had noted that she's unable to accept constructive feedback. And then she was basically kind of had enough, right? And essentially what ended up happening is that there was a breakdown of relationship between her and the management of the bank, and she was raising and escalating a lot of these issues. And this is the crazy thing, right? Is that she was basically saying once she started escalating things, they refused to pay her a bonus. They were saying there was something wrong with her and not the team. And the whole point here is that when you stand up for yourself and you don't want to put up with co-workers bullying you, they always make it a performance issue. They see something's wrong with your performance. And in that year, she didn't receive a bonus. Her male colleagues earned £70,000. Now, to what extent this is like gender discrimination, I'm not so sure. I think it's a case where she seems individually targeted rather than female employees generally. So I think she's got some fair comments here. So she was engaged in this legal dispute with them, trying to essentially earn some kind of payout from the company. And what's interesting here is how this thing progressed, right? So we've got this case here. So she effectively won the case and she effectively got paid £2 million, right? Let's just say $2 million to keep it easy, right? She earned $2 million from this discrimination lawsuit from her particular company, which was that French investment bank, BNP Paribas. And essentially she got this, and as part of that, she was awarded £177,000 to be paid to her each year for 15 years because they were like, she's dealing with, discrimination issues or depression or kind of upset about the situation she's in. So she gets a payout and an annual salary based on the discrimination she faced. Now that's a large amount, right? Such a large amount, like $177,000 a year on top of the 2.1 million settlement, or it's included within that, would be quite a lot of money, right? Imagine you're getting paid every year for 15 years for not working for a company, which is completely unheard of, right? What is funny is she got this multi-million-dollar payout and she said it's not enough. So she went back and said it's not enough and she wants to increase her payout from $2 million to $3.8 million, right? And she wants to receive not £177,000 each year. She wants 250,000 each year, because she wants it to cover like the income that she would have lost from not having a career. She also wants to earn this as part of bearing in mind that inflation is increasing and that technically you could buy back holidays. You know, if you work for a company, you could buy back your holiday days. If you don't take holidays during certain days, you can essentially sell those days to the company and they'll pay you. So she wants to get paid in that format too, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Imagine you'll get a multi-million-dollar payout and you're like, oh, I'm getting a multi-million-dollar payout, a certain amount a six-figure salary each year for not working for 15 years, but actually it has to be adjusted for inflation. We have to increase those days I could have sold when it came to, you know, selling holiday days, vacation days, effectively, to get paid from 250k to 320k annually, right, total. So it's just, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think she's making some fair points, right? But this just shows you what goes on in this society, in the sense that, yes, there could be valid instances of discrimination. Yes, you could pursue legal avenues, which could be quite costly for you. And I assume she had enough money to really take this company to court and had a solid case, because it's very expensive to sue a company, an investment bank that can come up with 1,000,001 reasons to say you're the problem, not the company. The team was fine, the management was fine. There's no evidence to what you're saying. So she must have taken a massive risk for her career, because she's probably going to find a difficult time getting a job elsewhere, because they're going to see her as someone who could snitch on the company and their toxic culture. But what's interesting here is like the level of entitlement, right? So you create a society where people can play the victim, and then they play the victim, then valid or not, I would say she's got some valid points here, but then they even want to whinge and say, oh, 2 million isn't enough. She's like, 2 million isn't enough. No, I need 3.8 million. And we need to adjust my pay so it's in line with inflation, right? Because it's not fair if you're paying me, but the inflation rate is increasing quite dramatically, so you have to pay me a higher salary for the next 15 years, right? Because the inflation rate is out of control. This is the level of ridiculousness that happens in society when you create a victim culture, and people like, it's never good enough for them, right? And I think it's worthwhile bearing in mind the scenarios you're going to be dealing with in any corporate environment, toxic work cultures. So a couple key points to learn from here: making a note of every time you do have a slight or unfair treatment at work, unfair treatment between you and others, in case they try to build a narrative that you're the problem at work and not other people, or you're getting unfair, or they say they're treating you fairly when you can clearly see a pattern, they're treating you unfairly. Make a note in your own notebook of times and dates of what's occurred, in case you're in this scenario from the day you start. So even if you start at a company and you think it's going fine, little things you start noticing, just take a note of it. You've got nothing to lose from taking a note about it to yourself, because in the future you might want to leverage that to an employment litigation scenario, or to at least defend yourself in unfair performance reviews, which I've done in the past, right? And I know other people have done it effectively to defend themselves when they're dealing with management completely trashing their work performance when there's a very much lack of evidence or unfair treatment. But also you should just bear in mind what environment you're dealing with, right? As a man or a woman, but I'd say particularly as a man, is that a woman can take a joke, something that you might consider as banter, you know, with another male employee, that she might take it personally, right? Because women are more emotional than men, right? I think if you left a witch's hat or like some kind of other funny way of mocking a co-worker on their desk, and it wasn't a witch's hat, a wizard's hat or anything, right, they wouldn't take it as offensive as she would, right? So, and she's got a collective instance of issues, right? It's not one employee, it's multiple employees in cases, right? So you just got to be careful when it comes to co-workers and making jokes, right? They can take it the wrong way. You could be dragged into a law case, a legal case, an employment dispute, because you made one little joke to a co-worker about her gender, and then a male co-worker and the managers might have been really doing some negative things to her, saying negative things to her, and then all of a sudden you're getting dragged into an employment lawsuit, and then, you know, you might get dismissed by the company for saying something inappropriate now, or they might set you up to get you to quit later because you're linked to a toxic lawsuit that made them look bad, right? So you've got to be careful about these instances, you know, right? Making notes of what happens to protect yourself, and also be careful about what jokes you make in the office, right? What's funny to one person is offensive to the other. Now, that's just a quick story to help you just navigate things, right? Hopefully some of you get multi-million-dollar payouts through discrimination, getting paid, you know, six-figure salaries for not working, which again is quite rare, but she managed to do it. But if you're dealing with these crazy workplace dynamics, let me know. Link in description to schedule a call with me and get started on a coaching program. I can help you map your strategy from your current career situation to greater freedom, renovating your LinkedIn CV and cover letter, outsmarting office politics, being a man in workplace environments where you could get accused like this, genuine or not, how to deal with getting promotions, how to manage the layoff process, and how to accelerate your success with financial freedom. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this scenario? Have you ever been guilty of making these jokes? Have you ever seen jokes go quite wrong in the office? And what do you think about this, right? Do you think it's fair that people made some inappropriate comments about her in the office? She appears to be getting paid less compared to her male co-workers, but I think now she's paid more than sufficiently, right? Given she had a successful lawsuit, made high seven figures in her lawsuit, 2 million, over 2 million, and getting paid six figures each year. Quite a lot of money to be making for not working right now. So let me know in the description what you think about this story. 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you next time.